On the love of the foreigner. There's something about that old line, do not mistreat foreigners living in your country, but treat them just as you treat your own citizens. Love foreigners as you love yourselves because you were foreigners one time in Egypt. That rings like a bell across time. It's not just law. It's memory disguised as commandment. The verse doesn't say, be kind to strangers because it's the right thing to do. It says, remember who you were. That's the core of it. All morality, all decency, all compassion worth a damn comes from memory, remembering what it felt like to be small, scared, or outside the circle. The great disease of the heart begins when people forget that they too were once on the other side of the gate. It's easy when you've got a home, a bed, and a name that carries some weight to forget how it felt to be nameless, to forget the hunger of being invisible. But the verse, this one right here, keeps a mirror in front of the soul. It says, don't you dare forget what it means to wander. What I love about this passage is how it binds empathy to history. It doesn't float off into the clouds of sentimentality. It doesn't say, love everyone, in that vague, thin way people like to say it when they don't want to be bothered. It roots the command in blood and soil, in the memory of suffering, because you were foreigners once. It's saying, you know what it's like to be the one looked at sideways. You know what it's like to be unwanted, untrusted, unwelcomed. So don't build a wall out of your forgetfulness. That, to me, is the most profound kind of moral intelligence, the kind that grows from remembered pain. Not the kind that says, I'm better than you, but the kind that whispers, I know what it's like. You ever notice how people change once they start to feel secure? The same ones who used to hustle for a place at the table start locking the door behind them. They forget that the only reason they got inside was because someone else left the door open. That's the pattern. The rescued become the gatekeepers. The wanderers become the guards. And the old verse stands there, like a stubborn light in the desert, saying, don't do that. It's not talking only about national borders or immigration papers, though it surely includes those. It's talking about the borders inside the soul. Every human being carries an inner country. There are citizens there, memories, loyalties, familiar loves, and there are foreigners too, those parts of ourselves we exile because they scare us. When the verse says, love the foreigner as yourself, maybe it's also saying, love the foreign part of yourself. The part that doesn't fit. The part that doesn't belong anywhere yet. That's how you learn to love others rightly. You begin by ceasing to persecute the stranger in your own heart. There's also something quietly political about this verse, though it's older than politics. It cuts through the idea that belonging is a privilege. It makes belonging a responsibility. To be a citizen of any land is to carry an ethical burden. You are to remember the pain of the unrooted and act accordingly. That doesn't mean blind hospitality or naivety about the world's dangers. It means a heart trained in proportion, the understanding that justice without mercy rots into cruelty, and mercy without justice dissolves into weakness. What this verse does is balance both. Treat them as your own. Not more, not less. As your own. That's hard work. It means letting go of superiority without collapsing into guilt. It means remembering without becoming bitter. It means loving without pretending everyone's the same. But that's the genius of it. Love, in the biblical sense, isn't a mood, it's a discipline. It's a way of seeing. I imagine those ancient people hearing this for the first time, still carrying the dust of Egypt in their hair, still flinching when a whip cracked in memory. They were free now, yes, but free men can turn cruel just as quickly as kings. So God, knowing the shortness of human gratitude, carved memory into law. You were strangers once. Don't forget. Maybe the real measure of a civilization is how it treats those who remind it of its past vulnerability. The child, the foreigner, the poor, the sick, each one is a living mirror of a time when we were not yet strong. And if we despise them, it means we have learned nothing from our own deliverance. Every age invents a new Egypt, some system or story that justifies forgetting. The verse calls that out. It pulls memory back into the bloodstream of morality. It says, your freedom isn't yours alone. You were lifted up so you could lift others. Sometimes I think about what it means to love as yourself. That's an old phrase that still rattles the modern ear. People say, I can't love others until I love myself. And there's truth in that, but what the scripture means isn't self-esteem. It's self-recognition. It's the understanding that the line between me and them is thinner than it looks. To love as yourself is to see no essential difference between your hunger and another's, your fear and another's, your need to belong and another's. That's not psychology, it's humility. It's metaphysics. Because under the surface, all souls are migrants. We all come from elsewhere, and we are all passing through. And maybe that's why the verse ends with, I am the Lord your God. It's a reminder that all ownership is provisional. The land doesn't belong to you. The border doesn't belong to you. Even your own life doesn't belong to you. You are stewards, not sovereigns. You are caretakers of what you did not make. That ending isn't a threat, it's a grounding. It says, treat the foreigner rightly because both of you live under the same sky, breathe the same breath, answer to the same source. You see how that changes the whole moral geometry? It's not charity, it's kinship. I think late at night, like this one, that the verse is still alive because it never stopped being true. Every time someone crosses a border, literal or spiritual, this line gets rewritten in the air above them. Every time someone is told they don't belong, it hums under the surface, waiting to be heard. And sometimes when a person remembers who they were, the lost, the frightened, the one who needed a door opened, it speaks again. Love them as you love yourself, because you were once a stranger too. That's the oldest truth and the hardest one. The circle of belonging must always be wider than our fear. In the end, maybe it's not a law, but an invitation. To remember, to soften, to look across the border and see not the foreigner, but the familiar. Because every human being you'll ever meet, no matter how strange, no matter how wrong, no matter how distant, carries a story that once belonged to you. And if you listen long enough, you'll hear your own footsteps in theirs, walking toward the same promised land.